William Barr. Thanks very much for your presentation today. It was very informative. What I would like to ask you, see you managed to bring all the supporters groups under the one umbrella. Are you still holding quite strong with that? Have you seen signs of schism or arguments amongst each other? Because the question why I'm asking this is, although we're all united for 90 minutes on Saturday afternoon and now as the players, I think we hold up the true reality of being a Protestant team. There's so much schism in the club and the supporters. And have you managed to hold that together? And can you learn lessons from that?
It's a very good question. I think all the time that I've been involved with the supporters organisations at Dundee, and I mean that's going back to probably 2000 that I got involved with the umbrella group, the Dundee Supporters Association. I've learned that you cannot please all the people all the time, and Dundonians are notorious for moaning about anything. So you're always going to have people that are not happy with what you're doing. We're seeing that now as owners of the club as well, that people think we've got our own agenda, or they don't agree with us or whatever, and you're not going to be able to please everybody. But what you have to do is compromise. We brought the groups together by saying, right, well, we'll give up the name that we were known by. We'll make it a fresh slate, and we'll bring your representatives onto our board and so forth. And there was still a little bit of resistance. There was, we'll give it a trial for a year and we're not sure how it's going to go, we want to protect our name and our own identity. But we had another general meeting of the supporters clubs in August this year, and while there were one or two dissenting voices and a few questions, we've managed to solidify that. So we've got a situation now where people can join the supporter society, whether they're an individual, whether they're want to pay a premium membership as an individual, they can join as a company, they can join as a supporters club, and the supporters club itself gets the same voting rights as any individual member would. They've got their own budget, they manage that themselves, they've got their own committee. Giving them plenty of leeway and allowing compromise like that is really important. But the important thing to look at with the supporters trust is not what's the agenda or who are the people that are sitting at the top table, because that will change. Supporters trusts are a structure. They're so that you can have that one member, one vote, so that you can look after the kind of sums of money that a club run out the back of a pub can't look after. And if you can get across that it's simply a structure, and let's take a fresh approach to this, and forget about particular agendas or politics, but say, isn't this a structure that we could use to have one body, then I think you've got a fair chance.
Thanks again, Fraser. Can we just have a wee round of applause to thank you for your contribution? Unusually for us, we're actually on time for a change. The next speaker is Dr. Stewart Wheaton, who lectures at the University of Abertay in Dundee. He's in the sociology department there. He's a Sunderland fan, although he's lived in Scotland for many years. You may have seen him and indeed Professor Walker to my right giving evidence in the televised evidence session to the Justice Committee about the new Offensive Behaviour at Football Act. And I think we can safely say that Stewart appeared to run a horse and coaches through a lot of the arguments in favour of this bill. But more than that, he's not just for running a horse and coaches through the bill, or indeed Graham Spears, that I thought he did particularly well. He's talking about practical things. We've had things where the Blue Order and the Union Bears have had campaigns against the bill. But I've found that when we as the Trust have gone into some of these meetings with the police and MSPs, quite often you can find yourself on your own. And for Rangers fans, we always think we're the big club, we can do what we want, we've got the majority of fans in this country. The reality is, because the regime that was formerly ensconced here didn't look after things for 20 years, our friends in politics are fairly few and far between on the ground. So Stuart's going to come up with why you should be against the bill, and he's also going to give you some practical hints on where he would like to see the campaign go. But I mean, I think he's sensible enough to realise that we're against it for our reasons. Other people might be against it for their reasons, but this bill is no good for football fans, whatever team they support. So, Stewart, hand over to you.
Thanks, Mark. I have to say before I start, as my wife pointed out that I had a green tie on. I'm wearing a green tie because it's my tie. I've been wearing it for 10 years. It doesn't mean I'm a secret Celtic fan, it just means I'm cheap.
Maybe Mark will send you away with a good tie then.
You can hand me by it later. Anyway, I was reading The Scotsman just as I was getting off the Underground. I came across this article, as you can see, it says, comedy may be cruel, but can jokes really be criminalised? Right? And I raise that because the thing I'm going to talk about today, I think, and I hope most people here can recognise this, is a problem well beyond football in terms of the limits that are being placed on free speech across society. So Ricky Gervais, you know, that sort of squeaky, nice little guy, even he is being hauled over the coals at the minute. So who am I? I'm a Sunderland supporter, as Mark says. I'm a lecturer at Abertay University in Dundee now. I was a community worker and a youth worker in Coatbridge and Airdrie for 15 years, and I lived in Glasgow for nearly 20 years before I moved to sunny Dundee, which is very beautiful Dundee, I have to say, to my surprise. But I still love Glasgow. I would see it as my hometown, strangely, even though I'm from Newcastle. I've spent most of my adult life here, just to get you on side a little bit. I set up the Take a Liberty Scotland group, if you like, or campaign, about a year ago. And the first thing, basically it is in opposition to the over-regulation of everyday life, basically. That's how I would explain it. So the first thing I campaigned on was the taking of photographs in primary schools. I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you go to a nativity play now, the head teacher might say, "Can people not use their cameras or take photographs?" Right. The implication is, one of you here might be a paedophile. Please don't do that. Right. I think that's a problem and insulting, and I campaigned against it. My next one was to oppose the, what is still about to happen, which is the rise in the price of alcohol, which again I think is incredibly patronising. People, if they want to drink, they should be able to drink without all of us being treated as we need the government to tell us how and what we should be drinking. Then this brings me to this campaign, which is, at the minute, I think the most important, and I think it's the most important issue in Scotland, which is the offensive behaviour in the football bill, which I'm just going to assume you know a bit about, but basically can put people in prison for 5 years, as far as I can tell, for singing offensive songs for all intents and purposes. And if you don't know somebody who has been put in prison or who has been arrested for saying something naughty, then I suspect in the next few years most people in this room soon will, because of the level of policing that's taking place. Give me a shout after 25 minutes, okay? Because I'm bored. Listening to the discussion about sectarianism in Scotland, I often feel that I'm in a parallel universe. Alex Salmond, for example, has argued that bigotry could kill Scottish football. Other MSPs discuss the problem of sectarianism as if it's almost a medical condition. So they talk about the disease of sectarianism or this epidemic spreading across the land. And many contributions by politicians, you get the impression, and if you lived outside of Scotland, you genuinely would have an impression that there are crowds of pitchfork-carrying mobs screaming around the streets of Glasgow. And there is a worrying, seamless connection made in the discussion by the politicians, where you have serious acts of violence on the one hand, sending of nail bombs, an idiot jumping onto the pitch and trying to attack Lennon, then the squabble between the sort of handbag session between Celtic and Rangers, well I should say Rangers and Celtic managers, and singing songs. So there's a seamless connection made constantly between singing songs and serious acts of violence, as if one directly leads to the other. One of the most frustrating things I've found in this whole discussion, the sort of political gibber about sectarianism, the talk of the game of shame, how Scotland as a nation has been brought into shame because of various things happening on the pitch, is that I think all of this would have been forgotten about if the politicians hadn't jumped on the bandwagon and tried to make a big issue of it. In reality, it's politicians, I would argue, helped by the media and the police chiefs, who are making sectarianism into an issue and making Scotland, and Glasgow in particular, look like a backward, bigoted hellhole. One of my friends, when Alex Salmon jumped on this bandwagon last year, one of my friends made the point, which I thought was right, that it was like one of those idiot goalkeepers that we see when there is an incident happens at one end of the pitch and he runs the full length of the pitch like a total idiot and starts remonstrating with the referee. And that, as I thought, was a good analogy of what was actually taking place here, where you have a moronic, self-indulgent show-off, basically, who is infantile and immature. And that's how I would describe this campaign. And I think we should understand the SNP reaction to last year's events as a form of grandstanding. And I want to stress this point, and this is sort of, the next few minutes, I want to stress this point about grandstanding, and look at why I think this has taken place. And I think it's very easy to get defensive about this discussion, to get preoccupied with the nitty-gritty of forms of behaviour at football games. But I think Alex Salmon's reaction, and his overreaction, like previous First Ministers before him, had absolutely nothing to do with any real problems in football. There are no pitchforked crowds or rise of mass bigotry in Scotland or Glasgow. There is no epidemic or plague of sectarianism. There's not even a serious level of violence at games themselves. In fact, the opposite is the case. Even with the political and religious baggage that comes with Old Firm games, there is a remarkable lack of violence in Scotland before, during and after these games. The reason for the political pontification about the Old Firm is because sectarianism is Alex Salmon's ugly mate, and I'll explain to you what I mean by this. If you go into town and you want to pick up a woman, it's always handy to have your ugly mate standing beside you. The reason for this is quite clear, I think, for most men in the audience. Because while you're chatting up this good-looking woman, you're standing next to this ugly, weedy, spotty little guy, and in comparison, you're going to look like a big man. Once you get chatting to the woman, you can also start to take the piss.